Control action. This is the byproduct of the first virtue. Once you can control your mind, you have captured your body. This also deals with controlling your emotions, since emotions determine the actions of the average man. You must realize that no outside event has an emotion attached to it. Your mind assigns emotions to the event based off repetitive habit. Once you learn to control this process through strength of will, you will gain authority over your first kingdom, yourself. The wise man seeks only to control himself. By ruling yourself, there will be no need to control anything or anyone else. A king will arise from this ability.
I ain't even gonna play with him. Bang! He ain't gonna play with bang! I put the racks on a nigga, got dogs and cats on a nigga, look just like a massacre hit him, look like a Kardashian with him, packing a scrap in the middle. I wanna shoot, he won't grapple a nigga, nothing alike, we differ. I be finessing and pressing, who gon' be my next contestant? Boy, you bitch gon' catch a blessing, I'm wanting for questioning, cause I'm big chesting it. Strikes on me like I be reffing it. Pull up on your residence. Hoodlum take over 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 your. Hoodlum take over your.
Peace and power. Once again, this is Brother Psyche, and today we're going to continue the build that I started, the 10 virtues of a student. Now, I dropped one, and there are going to be 10 parts to this series, and I'm going to drop it in a playlist called the 10 virtues of a student. And I gave an explanation of what this is and where this came from on number one. This is number two. I gave an explanation on number one. If you didn't get it and you want that explanation, go look at number one. Matter of fact, you need number one to move to number two. As you saw in the beginning, in the intro of this, I said control of action. This is the byproduct of the first virtue. See, the first virtue is control of thought. And once you learn to control your thinking, once you actually have control over your mind, as this virtue says, you will have jurisdiction over your body. You will gain control over your body, because the mind then becomes the master. And that is the whole concept and whole idea that we're trying to build on. We're trying to build manhood to its highest level of achievement, and we're moving through these 10 virtues in order to constantly evolve and revolve and elevate ourselves to a high level of thinking. So now we're on control of action, and we're teaching the concept of what controlled action is about. Now, I gave you the virtue, so I'm gonna give you a quick breakdown, then I'm gonna give you a lengthier breakdown so we can kind of understand what controlled action is all about. In the virtue, it says control the action. This is the byproduct of the first virtue. It's what's left over after you've gained that first virtue of control of thinking. And once you have learned to control your mind, control the things that you allow inside your mind and the things that you allow yourself to meditate and focus on a continual basis, then you will automatically have mastery or control over your body. Because one of the things we have to understand is that it all starts with a thought. And that thought becomes our belief. That belief becomes the paradigm, the views, the lenses in which we see the world through. And once we have accepted that belief and internalized that belief, then that accepted internalization of that belief becomes our actions, the way we respond to reality, the way we deal with people, the way we move throughout life. And those movements, those actions create and produce our reality. And we're all about producing the reality that we want out of life and making sure that we don't unwittingly produce the realities that we do not want. So let me build with you. I'm gonna do a little reading because I got this breakdown I wrote down. So I'm gonna do a little reading, and I want y'all to stay with me and focus with me. If you are not subscribed to the channel and you like the content that I've been bringing you, subscribe to the channel. Help the channel grow. Hit a thumbs up on the video. It helps tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. So ride with me and support what we're doing here. So anyway, let's get to it. Control of action. This is the byproduct of the first virtue. Once you can control your mind, you have captured your body. And we use the word capture, like the body is trying to get away from us. And it's real. Think about it. In scripture, Apostle Paul, he basically said, I'm gonna have to paraphrase because I can't remember it verbatim, but he essentially said that if I did the things that I wanted to do, then I'd be on point. But I don't. I constantly do the things that I don't want to do. It's like he's constantly wrestling with himself. He's constantly battling with himself. And we have that same conflict every day. You know, we say, okay, I'm gonna start eating right come Monday. I'm gonna start exercising come Monday. I'm gonna stop drinking after my birthday. I'm gonna stop eating sweets after Christmas. We say these things, but we never accomplish them. We really want to do them, but it seems like we're fighting with ourselves. So it tells you that once you can control your mind, you have captured your body. Because it's like the body is constantly trying to run away with you, and you're not ever able to put yourself in a position to have power over your own self. That's what it kind of seems like, and that's what this virtue is talking about. That's the whole point of this whole virtue, is gaining that type of mastery over self. And it tells us, it says, this also deals with controlling your emotions, since emotions determine the actions of the average man. Emotions determine the actions of the average man, not the supreme man, because the supreme man had moved past allowing his emotions to dictate his actions to him. But to the average man, emotions reign supreme, and we have to learn how to control these things, these feelings that come upon us. It tells us you must realize that no outside event has an emotion attached to it. Your mind assigns emotions to the event based on repetitive habit. Once you learn to control this process through strength of will, you will gain authority over your first kingdom, yourself. The first kingdom that you can ever rule, that you could ever have power over, is yourself. And you must gain mastery over that kingdom first before you try to rule anything else. You cannot become a manager, a boss, or a commander at the job. You can't become a general in the military if that's where it lies at. You can't rule anything. You can't even rule your family if you haven't gained authority over the first kingdom. You must gain authority over the first thing that you've been given to have mastery over, and that's self. And this is what we're talking about in this virtue. Look at what it says. It says no outside event has emotion attached to it. Your mind assigns emotions to the event based on repetitive habit. What does that mean, Brother Psych? What are we trying to say here? Let's look. I'm gonna use something that's recent in news and what everybody's talking about. I hate to use it because this is what everybody's talking about, like they ain't got nothing else better to do. But let's look at the Will Smith Chris Rock slap. Chris Rock was slapped on national TV in front of the world to see. Now, the slap itself, everybody might say, I would have been so mad, I wouldn't have been able to think, I would have beat the hell out of you. We could say all kind of things. But one thing that we have to understand, and Chris Rock, for whatever reason, demonstrated something to us. And I'm not saying I like how he responded or any of that, and I'm not even going to give my opinion on it. But the outside event was the slap. The slap was an outside event. It was outside of Chris Rock. It wasn't in his brain. It wasn't in his feelings. It wasn't in his bloodstream. It was something outside of him that happened. And your mind assigns an emotion to that event based on repetitive habit. Then you have some people that are sadomasochists. You slap them, they get sexually excited. So their mind assigns sexual excitement to being hit. Then you have others that may feel like being slapped is a sign of dishonor and disrespect. So if you slap that person, their mind is going to assign anger, frustration, and a need to retaliate to that event. But the event itself does not come with an emotion automatically attached to it. Based on what we've experienced through our lives, however much time we've been alive on this planet, every time we've been slapped or kissed or hugged or said hi to, we have developed a psychological response to that based on how the first time that made us feel. And then we start creating a repetitive habit, a habit of responding in the same way to when it gets to the point that when somebody does these events to us, these actions to us, if somebody walks up and slap you, you automatically respond with anger, or you automatically respond with sexual excitement, or whatever it is that you have conditioned yourself to give that response to. Understanding that is a beautiful thing, because here it is. You can train yourself or retrain yourself to give a different response if you don't like how you've been responding. And that's the key to control of action. Let me read this bill. By automatic, systematic, remote control, once you have learned to control your mind, your body will follow. This is because the mind is the master of your personal universe. You are your personal universe. You are your personal world. You are responsible. You can't control anything else. You can't control what your wife doing, what your kids are doing. You can have influence of it, but the one thing that you have complete and total control over is self. So it says that this is because the mind is the master of your personal universe. The beliefs that you hold in your mind determine your attitude about reality. Your attitude determines your actions, and your actions determine what you get out of life. You also must learn to control how you feel, since most of our behavior is based off of our emotions. Emotions are so strong that they tend to cloud our judgment and obscure our ability to view and respond to reality. To eliminate emotions' ability to dominate us, we must understand that emotions are nothing more than a neurochemical response to sensory stimuli. Now I know you probably saying, Brother Psych, why you intellectually masturbating? What the hell did you just say? I said emotions are a neurochemical response to sensory stimuli. Will Smith's slap was the sensory stimuli. When his hand hit Chris Rock's face, that was sensory stimuli. It sent a sensory stimulation into Chris Rock's body. Now, a neurochemical response took place inside Chris Rock. 9 times out of 10, his brain, his pituitary gland, secreted a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. If you ever felt afraid, ever felt like fighting, if you ever felt angry, mad, your brain was secreting cortisol. There is no magic. These feelings don't just come out of anywhere. These feelings are hormones. These feelings come out of certain parts of your brain to make your body feel a certain way for survival reasons. We evolved these abilities in order to know how to respond to events that could be dangerous to us or be a threat to our survival. That's where these things come from. By understanding that, then you gain control over the process. And the process still happens. It's not going to just stop happening because you have a scientific explanation of what's going on inside your body. But by being aware of it, you're able to stop. You're able to slow down. And you're able to kind of move in the emotion at the moment instead of just responding. You at the job, somebody raised their voice, instead of slapping the hell out of them, getting yourself fired and maybe getting yourself an assault charge, you're able to stop. You're able to say to yourself, this guy or this person has angered me. This person has upset me. Why am I upset? Why does the words that person used with me make me so angry? You know, and sometimes, a lot of times, we'll find that our anger comes from something that happened in our past. It's an event that happened in our past that made us feel disrespected or undervalued. And because of that disrespect and that undervalue, we have kept that. And every time somebody else in our life does that thing, it puts us back in that same original emotion. But by stopping and taking our time to ride that wave of emotion out, we're able to stop and say, I'm not going to respond with this time in that way. We're able to control it. We might blow up when we get home. Take it out on a nice workout, on the punching bag or whatever, but we're able to stop. And over time, you'll be able to actually completely control it. You'll even be able to not even feel it. Actors have mastered this process. That's why Denzel seemed so real in Training Day. He seemed angry for real because he was able to bring it up. He was able to go into himself and bring that anger up. Times when you've seen people crying, we seen Denzel on John Q. When he said, I'm not going to bury my son. My son is going to bury me. We believed the performance. We believed it. When we seen these people, these actors and actresses that are great at their craft, demonstrate anger, frustration, love, sadness, we believe it. And sometimes you'll be sitting up watching TV knowing this ain't real, knowing that this is an actor, and you'll start crying because their performance is so well. And this is the process that they went through. They've learned to master bringing up the emotions at will. And on the reverse of that, you can master suppressing them. And I'm not demonizing emotion and making emotions out to be a bad thing. All I'm doing is showing us how we can control ourselves and not allow emotions to lead us into destruction. I can't remember who it was that said it. But and I can't remember the quote verbatim. But essentially, a person that a person that lacks the ability to control themselves and control their emotions is headed for self-destruction. People like that end up being murdered or sent to prison when you cannot control your emotional responses to the things that's going on around you. You're easily to be baited. Even in the Art of War, Sun Tzu says that to know the enemy's general, know if he's choleric, and that means basically easy to upset. Then you use that to bait him out, and you could take him out. If you've ever seen the movie The Godfather, the original one, they knew that Sonny, Michael's big brother, they knew he had a bad attitude. So they paid his sister's husband to beat on her. His sister called him and told him that my husband just hit me. He rushed out of there. He left his bodyguards and everything, so angry, and they set him up for a hit. They used his anger against him. Never allow your anger, your emotions, your inability to control self to put you in a threatening situation. Now, like I've done before in control of thought, in the first virtue, I'm gonna give you 3 principles to go along with the virtue to help you understand how to manifest the virtue, and then I'm gonna give you the reverse of the virtue. I'm gonna give you the vice, because sometimes the best way for us to understand a thing is understand what it isn't. So as we go through this series, you're gonna see that all of the virtues have 3 principles. We call them blessings, but these 3 principles are like 3 steps that allow you to master the virtue itself. And for this virtue, control of action, the 3 principles, because principle means the first thing or the first step. So before you can get a virtue, which is a strength or a strong quality, you must lay the foundation, these first 3 principles. And the 3 principles are discipline, self-control, and wisdom. And let me give you a breakdown of what these 3 things mean. So I'm gonna give you the blessings, then I'm gonna give you the vice, the opposite of the virtue itself. So I said discipline, self-control, and wisdom. Discipline is basically training that corrects, molds, or perfects the mental faculties or moral character. Let me say that again. Discipline is training that corrects. The word correct means to make right, to make a correction in something. If something was going the wrong way, you correct it and make it go the right way. So discipline is training that corrects, molds. The word mold is a frame around which an object is constructed. And we all have seen molds before. We understand the concept of a mold or an archetype. So, and perfects. Perfection or perfecting something means to complete it, to remove any lacking in that particular thing. And that's what discipline is. Or we go at it from the Latin word, the original word, the etymology of the word discipline is a disciplina, which means a teaching or an education. Just like in the word disciple, the word disciple literally means a pupil or a student. So discipline itself is the education that the disciple is getting. And in this sense, when we're talking about control of action, we're then making the mind the teacher, and we're making the body the student or the disciple. I quoted Paul earlier, and I'm gonna quote him again. I love this verse. It's probably one of my favorite verses from the Bible that I use a lot, but I think it's 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 27. I call it How to Birth the Wisdom of God. But in that chapter, Paul says, but I discipline my body daily, and I bring it into subjection, lest as I preach to others, I myself will fall short of the goal. In some versions, it says I beat my body daily. So it's comparing discipline to that beating, or that bringing that body into subjection, to making it submit to the higher faculties of the mind. That's what this word discipline is dealing with. Then we have self-control. Then we go to dealing with self-control. Self-control deals with restraining one's impulses, emotions, or desires. Using the mental powers that you gained in the first virtue, you use reason to determine what impulses you should respond to and what should be ignored. So you have to restrain yourself. You can't act on every single feeling that you have. You have to restrain yourself and put yourself in check. You have to discipline yourself. And last is wisdom. Now we say that wisdom is a reflection of one's knowledge. That there's no way that I can see what you know. I can't see what's in your head. The only way that I know what you know, or have an ideal of what you're about, is to see your knowledge reflected in your actions. That's wisdom. Once your wisdom is a reflection of one's knowledge. So the way a person moves, the way a person responds to life, the way a person speaks, and the way a person conducts themselves is their wisdom. It's their knowledge in action. So wisdom becomes the reflection of that thing that you say you know. You know, that thing that you learn to manifest your knowledge through your wisdom. So in control of action, we're dealing with the 3 principles of self-control, discipline, and wisdom. And if we want to go to the opposite end of the spectrum and look at the vice, then if control of action is the virtue, then the vice would be emotionalism. Now, again, I don't want y'all to think I'm trying to demonize emotions, but I think we need to understand that there's a difference between emotions, being emotional, and emotionalism. See, emotions are a natural part of the human being. And like I explained it before, we can kind of look at emotions as like the dashboard. Like when you're driving your vehicle, the dashboard allows you to know what's wrong. The dashboard allows you to know what you need to do. If you're driving down the street, the dashboard has the speedometer on it, so it lets you know how fast you're going. If you need gas, the dashboard has your gas gauge on to let you know how much further you can go before you have to go get gas. The dashboard allows you to do. That's what the emotions are. But you're not supposed to steer the vehicle with your emotions. That's when you become emotional. See, when emotions take over the body, then you're in a state of high emotional alert. That's called being emotional. Nothing wrong with having emotions. Something wrong with being emotional, because being emotional takes away your ability to think clearly. I used to know a young lady. I used to date her actually years ago. I used to date this young lady. She was emotional. She was so emotional. I tried to explain this to her. I was talking with her and explaining it to her, and all she kept hearing from me is that her emotions were not valid. And I was telling her, I'm not saying your emotions are not valid. That's not what I'm saying. Your emotions are extremely valid. The only thing is, you don't have to act on all of them, every time you feel something, you don't have to just act and jump off the cliff with it. And she thought she did. She said in her own words that the emotion was so strong that you must supposed to act on it. You can't ignore it. You have to do it. You have to get mad and go to screaming and acting a fool, and you have to do it. That's why I left the lady alone, because she did one of these emotional tirades in front of her children. Here it is, she has teenage children, and she went on an emotional tirade behind something that was completely ridiculous. I can't even remember what it was. And I tried to explain to her that you cannot do that. You have teenage boys, and that will put us at odds, because a teenage boy feels the need to protect and defend his mother. And he's not at a state of being able to look and see, my mother is wrong. My mother is tripping. My mother is not acting as an adult. No, a teenage boy sees that some big man is having a conflict with my mother. Let me stop it. Let me step in. Let me be the man of my house. Let me be the man of my tribe. So you cannot do that. But she wasn't able to think through that situation. And so I had to remove myself from that, because that could be extremely dangerous in the long run. But back to my point. Let me read the vice to you. So the vice, again, if you've watched the first video, Control of Thought, you know that there are 10 virtues of a student. But then there are 10 vices of the rebellious. The opposite. The first virtue is control of thought. So the first vice is mania. The second virtue is control of action. So the second vice of the rebellious is emotionalism. Emotionalism is the tendency to regard things emotionally, undue indulgence or display of emotion. See, the emotionalists bases the majority of their actions on their emotions. To them, the passions are the utmost motivators of the human being. Without them, the emotional person does not have the will to move. They also believe that every feeling that exposes itself to their psychology must be acted upon. Every time they have a feeling, they think, I gotta act upon it. Without thought, they just act. This is not meant to demonize emotions, for they are a natural and necessary aspect of the human mental makeup. The problem occurs when you become a slave to your emotions. This shackles a person to their lower nature and forbids the evolution to the higher. The mind becomes a servant to the body and is used to justify every whim of emotionalism. From a practical viewpoint, some of our most important needs and responsibilities do not have an intense emotion attached to them. The emotionalist cannot act without the motivation of emotion, which in the long run hinders his ability to be fully productive. To do the things that you need to do, but don't feel like doing, requires the rational mind. See, there are a lot of things that we may have to do in life. Like most people hate getting up going to work on Monday. That's why we call Wednesday hump day. And when Friday come around, what do we say? TGIF, thank God it's Friday. Because we hate getting up and going to work. But the thing is, We have to take on the responsibility of getting up, going to work, because we have bills to pay. We have children to take care of. Food costs money. Water bills are coming in. Gas is high as hell. So we have to take on our responsibilities. If we operated on our feelings, most of us would be laying in the bed watching TV or playing video games all day. So we have to do what needs to be done, and we can't depend on an emotion to be attached to that to make us do it. So this is the concept of control of thought. We have to be able to move based on what's necessary. Control of thought and control of action moves us to the next virtue, which I'll give you in the next video, which is steadfastness. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something from it. Hope you share the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel. This was your brother Psyche, and this was the Uhuru Shule. Peace and power.
My grandmother didn't make that all her life. She was a better woman than you are, man. I don't care what you say, because nobody cares what I think. I'm serious. Okay, shit, you didn't let my grandmama talk. Fuck all you motherfuckers. I got my money. I'm rich. I'm a rich, black, ignorant nigga. I don't believe it. Oh, good. You're the only one. The rest of them out there in the audience know. You ask some of these cowboys if they want to lynch me or not.
You ain't gotta justify my flow for this here to be hot. Wanna play it down with your click or to the side. When I percolate, you wanna see me fall the homicide of another musical entity gunned down live. I believe in myself, don't need nobody else but my brother, mother. God gon' hold me down, shots won't cease my sound. So you know the okey doke just provoked the heat I spoke. Now they hating on the low, try to force a brother down and start me out the crown. Want my mind, soul, blood on the ground. I believe when I speak, if I focus, hell freeze below zero with the degrees of real MC. You want the end of me, why they envy when we made equal? Recognize equality and mix me with the evil, the fame. Materialism is what deceive, hardcore to the brain. Inside my astral plane, just another player hater, Death Star chaser. Try me with this music, be surprised where I take ya.
No, that isn't what you said this morning. That's this morning. This is afternoon. I ain't no good. I ain't gonna try to be no good. This nigga should be in penitentiary. But I'm making money. Mean that. Yeah, I mean it. You ain't gonna put it on.